Hello and welcome to the special Veterans Day podcast for Pillars for Dignity. I am Sean Kelly. Today we're going to be talking to Ms. Tamika Abron and Farouk Muhammad, two amazing veterans that have had outstanding post-military careers. Veterans Day has been around in one form or another since 2019. But though we have seen a tremendous uptick in support for veterans, we still have many veterans that struggle with the transition back to civilian life. Today we'll talk about these issues and many more topics around veterans. Tamika and Farouk, I want to thank you very much for joining me today, and happy Veterans Day to both of you. I
Very
also want
much.
to thank all my sisters and brothers for their service and wish them a happy Veterans Day also. So Tamika, let's start with you. Please tell me about yourself.
Well, I am a 11-year Navy vet. I joined the Navy in 1996 as an electronics technician. My nurse corps training got cut short due to Hurricane Katrina. My family's home was completely wiped out, which required me to spend more time taking care of my parents and their housing situation. My intention was to rejoin the Navy again, but life kind of took me elsewhere. I got pregnant with my twins, and so I became a mom and decided, okay, that maybe the Navy is not where I wanted to be since my husband's active duty also. I started to work with my brother-in-law at his construction company and kind of worked from the office all the way up to superintendent. And once my husband and I moved here to San Diego, I just decided that, that was a career field that I was really interested in. And I had
Huh?
a great mentor, and here I am today.
All right, lots of so electronics tech, nurse, and now in the construction business.
That is correct.
All right. We have a lot of commonalities. My wife and I also have a commercial real estate business, so we'll have to talk. And Farouk, what about you, sir? Tell me about you.
So I started off in 1994 fixing medical equipment, coming straight out of high school, coming out of Texas, and then I spent about 7 years doing that, enlisted, and then I became a warrant officer and matriculated up through the ranks, culminating my career, kind of overseeing the school where all the biomeds that fixed medical equipment across the Army, Navy, and Air Force they go to. And once that I transitioned, I retired after 20 years in 2014. And then honestly, I kind of went on a journey. I said I wanted to start my own business. So I worked for a very large company. I worked for a small company. I started my own company. And then I did that for a while. And then I took some time off. It just kind of went on a navigated path and through several different companies and found myself where I am today, focused on IT systems, large data migrations, and those types of cloud optimization projects. So that's kind of where my path has been, and it's definitely something I think is something for other veterans to learn about. Is kind of understanding how to navigate the landscape after they transition. So.
No, I think that's hugely important. I think for the listeners and the viewers, I think there's a couple things. First thing, biomed, like the transition that Tamika made, biomed is the hardest dang school in the military if you're in the health profession. The fail out rate is amazing. Amazing probably is not the right word, but it's a really tough school. And then to make warrant officer in around 7 years is really, really tight. And so I think that there's, as you could see from these two individuals, high performing careers within the military, transition over to the officer, from the enlisted to the officer ranks, and that's no short feat. And so, let me start with Farouk, you on this question. So, we hear it all the time, right? You get on social media and people talk about Memorial Day, right? Happy Memorial Day to every veteran. We're like, no, that one's not us. That one, I'm glad that one's not me, because if that one's for me, I'm not here. But what does Veterans Day mean to you?
No, it's interesting you bring that up. I always listen to people talk about what is Veterans Day and you know, Veterans Day, Memorial Day. Obviously, Memorial Day is highlighting those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, as they say, all gave some and some gave all. But Veterans Day is about the all that gave some, and ended up transitioning on to different things. And then also the ones that gave all, recognizing them, but highlighting really the sacrifices, the camaraderie and relationships, the values, the things that bring us together as service members, men and women. For me, it's just stepping back and reflecting on the type of people that I connected with, the type of people the relationships that I built, where I traveled, and those experiences that kind of helped shape who I am today. So Veterans Day is definitely, something that I think about each year because I served across the globe with so many people who had high influence on my life, professionally and personally. And at the same time, acknowledging that there's a whole generation of those that will be veterans after me and those that were before me. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Okay, I appreciate it. Tamika, what about you?
I think definitely in agreement with Farouk. The reflection that day, Veterans Day is a day of reflection about what my service brought to this nation, what those who I've developed lifelong friendships with, what they brought to this nation, and also how I can show what I learned in the military, those I'd say those distinct things that I've learned that will help me continue on in my life and my professionalism, and also giving that to my children. So maybe they're not called to serve, but they do understand that that service is, as a voluntary service, is something that you commit yourself to, and showing them that commitment could go in your personal life and in your professional life.
No, absolutely. And I think for the viewers, you can hear it in both Farouk's and Tamika's voice as they talk about that reflection. It's emotional. It's not a negative emotion. It's just an emotion because I think we all walk away. And I was 20-year veteran as well. We all walk away for an appreciation for the time we spent, for how it contributed to our lives, but how it changed. I know it changed me drastically, and so I appreciate you sharing that. So Tamika, I'm going to go to you this time. So I'd like to discuss your transition. Farouk used a very interesting word called his journey, right? His journey. And I think it's such a positive way to talk about it because when we leave, it is different, right? It's very different. And listening to both of your journeys, I'm going to steal his word. As we look at those journeys, we have a lot, but I know for me, there were some struggles. When I first got out, I think within the first 3 months, I was in bed for a week one time, and I didn't realize why I didn't even know it was depression at the time. But, once I figured it out, I said, okay, let's, and I think, again, back to what the military teaches us, it tells us to pick ourselves up. It helps us focus. So some of the struggles that you overcame, that as you were coming out of the military and had to make some transitions, let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, when I got out in 2007, there were no transition programs. There were no, hey, let's help you out, help you find a job. Let's, find out what you're good at, where do you want to work in, what field or what industry. There was nothing like that. It was literally, you got out, you got a copy of your medical record, you got a copy of your service record, and hey, thanks for your service kind of thing.
Okay.
As a woman of color and a female veteran, it was very difficult because here I was, used to being in charge of 50 to 75 people, projects and programs, for communications. And when I go to apply for those jobs, it's like, oh, wait, no, you could be the secretary. You have to start from the bottom. And it's like, so it basically told me that all of that experience and all of that, initiative that I took and the ambition that I had to, move myself forward in my military career gave no bearing on the civilian world at all. And there was no help to change your resume to, translate. So it was a very difficult struggle.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. If it's not carefully crafted, it doesn't translate easy for those that have no military experience. And so that is one of those things. And I think we're getting better with that, but I agree. Back then, it really wasn't something. And so it's really amazing to see in a relatively short period of time, single-digit years. I think we've come a long way in helping veterans with their transitions. But I think we still have more to do. Brooke, what about you?
I still am on my journey. I feel like every single day. So I found myself, going through I think I went through all the different stages. So I was in seven different jobs since I've transitioned, and all the way, I knew I wanted to start my own company. I think I was prepared to transition. I had job offers, multiple job offers
Yep.
before I retired, before I even started my terminal leave. And it was because I actually started the process of like building my resume and doing all the stuff at my 10-year mark. Cause I was like, I know I'm gonna get out at some point. I want to be marketable.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that I know that I highlight for people and I've mentored over the years is getting your education, which, you know, is an interesting story for me on that. But bottom line is getting the education, getting certifications, getting different qualifications that help, you know, market you. But once I got out, I still found myself going through those same types of, you know, events, life events like yourself, depression. I mean, it's a real thing. And I think getting over the stigma associated with where people think it's negative and you know, and actually acknowledging that it's something that genuinely is part of transitioning and life and in general, you know, I don't take that for granted. And I think it's part of, it could be a part of many people's journey. And for me, it's something that I continue to work through. So I think that ultimately it is about being around the right environments that give you and help nurture you. And as Tamika stated, that, you know, there weren't resources for her, but looking at what's coming these days, I think that puts them in a much better position. At the same time, those services were available for me. And even though I knew how to do it and I did it and I transitioned well, and the day I left active duty, the Monday I came in, I was in my new job. So it wasn't like I didn't have a job, I didn't have something to cover, but I still went through that range of emotional life cycles throughout my career. So afterwards, and I still go through them. So.
No, agreed. And I think there's some valid points. I mean, I think a couple things is Tamika, 2007, you got out, and you were 2014. So that was the 7 years, right? And so here we are now, fast forward, you know, we're 7 more years, right? So we're 14 years since Tamika got out. We're 7 years since you got out. I got out in 2011, I retired in 2011. And, you know, here, I think you hit on very similar, is Tamika represents the range of veterans that were trying to find something and, you know, was early in the process and didn't really have the help to transition. And she had to battle through that. You and we started a job the next day, but there's still that range of feelings. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that with veterans is the ecosystem. You know, I was the most unmilitary person there was in the world, right? I mean, I rebuffed every order I could. And people always ask how did I have a successful career? And so I never thought taking off that uniform was going to mean one thing to me, right? It was one less thing I had to do. And I found out probably within 30 to 60 days, it meant the world to me. You know, here is something that I put on every day for 20 years and a few months, and I was crushed when it was gone, you know, and I did not expect that. And I think that's also part of it. You know, we went, you know, you mentioned going through the full range of emotions. And I don't think that anything in the transition process, back to Tamika's point, even prepares us for those emotions to come through. You know, they don't. Well, I don't think we're prepared for that at all. And so that's interesting. And Tamika, you mentioned a little bit with, you know, you could be a secretary, right? All you had done, electronics technician, which is not an easy school either. And, you know, and then nursing, and then getting out and was just struggling to really find that place. And so, you know, how can you go into a little bit, you know, about where you were emotionally as far as that went, because that had to be a really hard. Here you are, this high, you know, soaring on naval officer, and all of a sudden now you're being offered a secretary job.
Well, I want to be clear. I was working right after I got out. I was working within like 2 weeks. I was hired as an assistant manager at a car parts facility. But that wasn't my calling. That was not, that was just income. That wasn't, you know, where I was supposed to be. But during that time, to go from managing, you know, 25, 50, 75 people and large projects and, you know, multi-million dollar, you know, systems to, you know, an operation of like 20 of people who, you know, this is like, they just started this job out of high school kind of thing. The hardest part was my expectations. I I had to understand that what I was expecting from them as their manager and what they were expecting from me were two different things. It took a very long time for those two to meet.
Okay.
But emotionally, it was very difficult because it felt like what I had done didn't matter. What I experienced, and it didn't matter to the people who I was working with or, working around. My ideas weren't cherished or even appreciated. It was like, we've always done it this way. And I'm like, no, work smarter, not harder. So it was a difficult transition for me. And also on the top of that, I was also dealing with my family, my parents, because like I said, after Katrina, just trying to get them in a new home, like making sure that the construction, companies didn't, swindle them out of their insurance money. It was just, it was a very hard, difficult time.
Great. So let's migrate into how we learn, right? So, I think Tamika just said it best, right? Work smarter, not harder, right? So if we have a veteran watching this podcast right now, Farouk, let me start with you. What advice would you give a veteran who's getting ready to get out of the military? What would you tell them to do differently from what you've learned?
So number one, I would tell anyone that is active duty or considering getting out to really start planning early. And what I mean by early means if you are at you should chart your path for your career progression as far as, who you build relationships with. Like building relationships on LinkedIn, if you have a career that maps to that. Now, for some people that may be combat arms, combat service support, some of those career fields don't necessarily marry over directly, but developing relationships, regardless where you are, learning how to speak and getting up in front of people. That's one thing. Your education is incredibly important. Getting certifications, even if you find yourself in a career field that you may not see a direct translation, picking up a skill, maybe the coding or software or something like that, that says, hey, look, what do I know that I can pick up and that can translate? The other thing too is for me, which is really big, is understanding that, when we are in large companies, this happens, and in the military, this happens. You get accustomed to a culture and a lexicon that does not necessarily translate outside your organization. So, the Army's HUA is a universal word for everything. And you could answer a whole paragraph or a series of questions with HUA, but that doesn't translate in the civilian world. And understanding that you need to, grow your lexicon or understand that your lexicon needs to mature beyond that. It's hard because when you're inside the military structure system, that's all you know. So I think from my perspective, like, I'm not going to say I would tell people to focus on, building up their education as much as they can, so that they, even if it's not on something that they totally know what they want, working on those certifications, building relationships outside, and then understanding that there are other organizations and cultures outside, going to different, job fairs, and, even while you're in the military, just so that you can understand what people talk about. Resume building is a huge part. I actually did quite a bit of resume assistance for different veterans because I just had that skill. And I will tell you that it's very, very, very difficult people to translate their stop using stuff like NCO and stuff like that. Just, interview preparation, starting early. That's the biggest thing. Regardless of when you think you're going to do it, start early.
Yeah. I tell people start 4 years out. If you're going to get out after an enlistment, or, you're 16 years in and you think you're going to retire at 20, I tell people start 4 years out, to start going to those professional organizations, the local chapters, and networking, as you talked about. Start working on the resume. I think for the first 4 years, and I don't do it as much now because it's been 10 years, but I used to spend every month, I used to review and tweak my resume throughout my military time so that, it started to shape. Because the first one, and I see it all the time still when people get out, that it's just their fitness reports or whatever we call them, the different service. It's a cut and paste job. This is what I did. This is all the awesome stuff I did. And, a civilian provider or a civilian company reads that and they're like, yeah, I have no idea what this person does. And so I think that's some great advice. Tamika, what about you?
I would tell transitioning veterans that education is very much key, not only because it shows how, you makes you more marketable, but also during those courses that you're taking, you're in class, you're in sessions with other people that may not be transitioning veterans, that might be, just changing careers. And you'll have an opportunity to increase your ability to talk to people who may not have that military background. And that's really critical in civilian life. The other thing would be utilize your resources before you get out. When I look at my transition and all the, and what's available to active duty members now, there are so many more resources. There are TAP classes, boost classes. There are courses that they can take online that will help you understand what is available to you, how they can be utilized for you, and all those benefits that are there that you've earned that you should use and you should take advantage of to help you move on to the next chapter of your life. So that would be my biggest, your education, and utilize the resources that are available to you.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. And so let's talk, I just want to ask you all real quick, because you both mentioned education, right? And all three of us are health, and education is a robust part of what we did when we were in. But if I'm an entryman, or I'm a Marine, and my day consists of running and working out, and tuition assistance is not always a capability because I'm deployed. What is some advice that we should be giving to them to help with their transition? Because they may not have had the opportunity to go to school at night or while they were in. I did all my education while in, but I was very fortunate. I had a lot of friends that began their educational journey when they got out. Tamika, what do you think?
I was one of those. I did take some classes while I was active duty, but the majority of my education has come on the tail end, on the outside. And it was hard navigating at first because, like I said, there was no, hey, if you want to go to school, this is what you have to do kind of thing. It was a lot of doing my research. But for those who may not have had an opportunity, it's okay to go to school. It's okay to take that time to focus on your education to make yourself more marketable. That's not just a personal journey, but it's also a professional journey, because that will show commitment to a goal to any future employer. It shows that you are ready and committed to something for yourself and willing to persevere through that.
Okay. No, I agree. Farouk, anything to add to that?
I would say that, definitely a formal 4-year degree program is a benefit, and really good, 4-year master's, whatever program there. But there are also a lot of transitional type career changes. So the VA offers like opportunities for people to change their career, and these programs could be more vocationally oriented. So there's nothing absolutely wrong with those. I mean, even one like, I would just think of one like called Code Up here in San Antonio. It's where they give you an opportunity like learn to become a coder in like 6 months, developer. So you can become a software developer in like 6 months. So, and they guarantee that you get a job. So it's something that's different and challenging, but there are different programs out there that give you a leg up on, maybe some people don't feel like they're a 4-year student, they're coming out of the military and it's just like, wow, this is a lot, even though I have the GI Bill and, post 9/11, they may be like, I don't know if I want to do that. I would say, look at the different types, as Tamika talked about, utilize the resources, understand all the programs that are out there, because you don't necessarily know what you want to do. Sometimes that's just the bottom line. You don't necessarily know. You don't maybe not have your passion figured out yet. You don't, it may spend, like me, you're still spending time trying to figure out where is your passion. I like helping people, but there's no job for that except, that directly correlates to that. The way we all said it. We all said it when we got out. We want to help people and we want to do great things and lead. But then it's like, well, where's that job at? And you find it elements in other jobs. But like I said, I think that's where I stand.
All right. No, I think those are both great answers. This next question is probably my favorite. Pillars for Dignity obviously is an organization that is here to help women and young ladies and underserved. And so I think the veteran population is greatly matched up when we talk about female veterans. And so, Tamika, I'm going to start with you as the panel member that represents this group the best. How do we help women veterans with their transition? So, like you said, I don't want to assume that because you're a woman, you are for the secretary job, but that was where my mind first went to, right? And so I don't think that's completely false. And so, what are your thoughts? How do we in pillars? How do we start to help women as they think about transition?
One of the largest things that I see in the women veterans that I have had an opportunity to mentor is that not women aren't always prepared to speak up for themselves, to speak up for their experience, to speak up for their education, to highlight that. They're not always prepared to present that in an exemplary light that it should be when they're in an interview. Also, women tend to face a little bit more issues when it comes to childcare. When you're inside the military, when you're active duty, your children go to the CDC, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Child Development Center, just we say with CDC. We still use acronyms.
There's no safety net like that on the civilian side. It is, you have to go through and find the child care or a person. And that can be very daunting, especially when your new position might want you to work hours that are outside of normal child care range. So between child care and maybe mentorships so women veterans can highlight their experience and highlight their accomplishments. So they do get moved into those jobs that are not the secretary or receptionist position. I think that those are probably the biggest two hindrances to women getting high level jobs.
Okay. No, excellent. Farouk, we're not as qualified to answer this question, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think, I work with some incredible leaders that happen to be women over my career. And I think exactly what P4D is doing. Pillars for Dignity is giving women a platform and young ladies a platform for them to showcase and highlight their accomplishments. So when you look at someone like Tamika, who's had a distinguished career, gone on to do some incredible, it's doing more of that, making it a less, people used to say this, like women leaders. I'm like, why do you say women leaders? It's a leader. Do you say men leaders? You don't. So you need to fixate. We need to fixate on the fact that these leaders happen to be women, just like these leaders happen to be men, and just continue to showcase their accomplishments, their recognition, their education, continue to, and like I said, this is a great platform where this is happening with P4D, is to be able to do that so that you can boost that, make it a normal. I look forward to the day that, like I used to tell some people, I look forward to the day that we don't have to have these conversations where the workforce is so interwoven and so diverse, and so we don't have to spend time highlighting these. But until we get to that point, and I think, we continue to make strides in that way, it's important to have organizations that boost up, that promote, that advocate and champion the value, the benefit, and the outcomes and the positivity associated with women in the workforce, and then also obviously women veterans. So
great. No, I couldn't have said it better by both of you. I want to thank you both very much. This has been an awesome conversation. I've enjoyed meeting both of you. I think that, there's a lot been done, but there's still a lot more to do. And so I'm Sean Kelly. I want to thank you all for listening to us today. To learn more about Pillars for Dignity, please visit their website at pillars4dignity.org. Thank you for joining us today, and happy Veterans Day to all y'all that are watching. Thank you, everyone.